So the next in our series of revalidation videos, we're looking now at the Nurse Bank and how the process will work for them. And I'm pleased to welcome Grampian, Senior Nurse for the Nurse Bank. Glenn, how is the revalidation process different for bank nurses?
Well, it isn't different at all. It's exactly the same process for all registrants, and that includes permanent and bank staff. Obviously there's challenges for the bank staff that the permanent staff may not encounter. The bank staff, because of the nature of the job, are going to be here, there and everywhere, different hospitals, different wards. So there's extra sort of pressure on them, you might say, and we're very aware of that, and that's why we're really striving to support them as best we can.
And what, I suppose, is the advice coming from you and your bank colleagues to nurses on the Nurse Bank?
Well, I suppose the first thing is don't panic. You're not on your own. There's a team of people around, PPDU, the Nurse Bank, there's the NMC microsite, there's the newsletters coming out from the Scottish Government. So there's lots of information out there, and if you're unsure about how to access it, we can help signpost it. So I think that would be my main message, is don't panic, and also to say don't leave it to the last minute. I think we're all a bit guilty of procrastinating if we can, but I think you need to sort of embrace it, and don't leave it to the last minute and put extra pressure on yourself. And if you feel that you're kind of struggling a little bit time-wise, that's when you would involve us and we can point you in the right direction.
So this video is all about looking at revalidation and what it means for members of the Nurse Bank. Helen, you are a member of the Nurse Bank. How have you been finding the process so far?
Well, initially quite frightening and quite panicky, thinking that there was an awful lot to do. But once you actually start the process, it's much easier than you actually initially think. And initially, because there were so many places with information to go to, it was probably more of a problem to decide where to start from. But going to the NMC website initially and printing off all the details was quite a good place to start.
And what advice would you have for fellow bank staff who are maybe just getting the process started, might not be revalidating in April, but later on this year? As someone who's going through it, what's your advice, your top tips?
Certainly don't leave things too late. Start as soon as possible. Register to apply for the e-portfolio, and certainly the NMC online. You definitely need that to start with. And then do a little bit at a time. Try and do it regularly, and that way it does make it much, much easier.
And you were talking a little bit before we started this about some of the challenges that bank staff are facing, and Glenn mentioned as well, because of the nature of your work, you're very much here, there and everywhere. So is that something people have been talking about in terms of your confirmer conversation and things like that?
Yes, definitely. I think a lot of people are very worried about it because they obviously aren't sure who they should be going to. Certainly the information that we've had so far is that NHS Grampian and Glenn at the Nurse Bank are looking into that, and they will let us know who we can approach for the confirmation, because it is difficult for staff going to different wards maybe every shift that they work.
And I guess the final bit of advice, as Glenn was saying, is if people are worried, raise your hand and say so, and ask for the help, because it is there.
Yes, definitely. I found it very helpful and informative going to the revalidation sessions, which included e-portfolio. But there's lots of information on the e-portfolio site. There's printed or examples of the e-portfolio, and there's completed templates as examples on the NMC website as well.